Shruti, what do you make of an increase in corporate venture of this size in Europe?
Yeah, well, I think it's a really interesting trend that seems to be occurring. I think corporate venture last year was about 20% of all the deals in Europe, or they were in about 20% of the deals. So there seems to be a movement in that direction. And traditionally in Europe, a lot of the deal sizes have been smaller and the fund sizes have been smaller. And there seems to now be an increase in the size of the fund. For the first year ever, we're seeing more $250 million plus funds than sub $50 million funds.
Are we seeing the same trends in corporate venture in the United States?
Yes, I mean, corporate venture continues to be a sizable piece of the venture landscape here, and it's still, in the United States, it's still a pretty large number. That I think percentage-wise, there seems to be more corporate VC going into deals in Europe, but the number of deals is larger in the United States.
So how does that change the competitive landscape in both Europe and the US?
Yeah, well, I think you're seeing other types of capital. So in the United States specifically, there were about 83 $100 million plus deals last year, and only 12 of them were led solely by a venture fund. So that means you're seeing corporate venture, among other types of kind of later stage funding, going into a lot of these companies. And I think in Europe, what this allows for is the potential for more acquisitions, for a lot of European companies to hold off on having to exit early because they'll be able to raise later stage funding.
Now, you work at Silicon Valley Bank, which is not a traditional venture fund, not a traditional bank. How does Silicon Valley Bank fit into Silicon Valley?
Yeah, so Silicon Valley Bank is, I think, in a very unique position. We bank both high growth tech startups and venture capital funds. And we were able to kind of get a pulse on kind of the trends that we're seeing in both places, because we can get we see a lot of data with our customers.
So there's also a number of IPOs on the docket, tech IPOs for this year. What's your outlook on how those companies will perform? Uber, Lyft, Slack, which is filed for a direct listing.
Yeah, I think it remains to be seen what will happen, but I think that there is definitely a lot of buzz around these companies.
So how do you think this year is going to be different than last year?
Yeah, well, I think there's certainly going to be more IPOs. So there were some IPOs in the US. Europe actually had an outsized number of IPOs. There were about 69 companies that IPO'd, 3 of them with $1 billion plus market cap. In the US, there were only, I believe it was about 24 tech IPOs. So I think 2019 seems to be a year where there will be potentially more tech IPOs as we're kind of getting to the 10 or 12 year mark with some of these companies that need to get liquidity for founders and investors.